Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Fact, my
All
alarm
right.
clock had
Nice
gone
camera
off.
action.
My alarm clock, so people can see it's me. See, I got clowns who will tweet me. Hey, stop masquerading as a judge. You'd never say anything like this. Oh yes,
Right.
I would. Believe
Oh,
me.
yeah.
See, I didn't go at this the way most people think.
Mm-hmm.
I approached it like I'm the village chieftain. And one of the things that the village chieftain or the feudal lord did, or anything in between, was he kept public peace, dignity, and order in his realm or in his domain. And that meant he had to resolve disputes and judge the action of miscreants that were causing problems in areas that he was responsible for. That's my approach to it. And I noticed something even with the white judges, old time white judges.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember this going on in the courtroom. Mr. Jackson, counsel, do you have a problem with the court's handling of this matter? Well, no, sir. The court is well within its parameters in doing what it's doing, but I do have an approach. Uh, well, let's put it this way. I am a little disturbed about the attitude of the court. Well, Mr. Jackson, if you don't like that attitude, perhaps we can both adjust each other's attitudes when the court does not have on this black robe. Your Honor, I think that would be quite satisfactory. Benton's, let's say around 5 o'clock. Well, Mr. Jackson, counselor, that sounds satisfactory to the court. Now, where 201 Poplar is, there used to be a couple of pubs over there,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked different back when.
Mm-hmm.
So they met up over there, and these old guys were throwing down. I mean, they were throwing some punches, and they could actually box. It
Uh-huh.
was an interesting fight, but they were kind of old. So after 5 minutes, they were panting hard, and somebody said, "You fools are gonna have a heart attack." He said, "Jackson, you got enough?" Say, "Wilson, hell yes." I'm making up the names.
Uh-huh.
Hell yes. So they shook hands. So guys, bye, everybody. Let's drink some goddamn beers on us. Or I remember one time I was a prosecutor in this one judge's courtroom, and I got off the elevator in the old city court on the top floor, and he and this other judge were face to face. And as soon as I got off, "Lawyer Brown, you got $50 in your pocket, son?" "Oh, well, yes, sir." "Can I borrow it?" I said, "Well, certainly. I'm gonna beat this bastard's ass right now, and I need $50 for bond." Now, goddamn it, you want your ass kicked like I said I was going to? Let's get it on.
Mm.
They didn't have a fight because some people stepped in, including me, but that's the way they used to roll.
Wow. Wow.
See, it's like the judge historically for most of the country's existence was a badass, like Judge Roy Bean down in Oklahoma. How many people did he have hung? But he used to walk around with a 45 strapped on and a Winchester under his arm, or a 12 gauge double barrel, ready to go with hammers at half cock.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
by the way, that shooting incident, nothing came out of it. When Winfrey checked, There'd been no reports from hospitals or any calls in. And I guess it was that time when Whitehaven was getting ready to be a little crazy. One call came in, said they heard gunfire, but nobody even got dispatched. Just
So
say,
you think
well,
that was related to the James Earl Ray case? Was that
yeah,
a
it
hit
was.
team? Was
Yeah,
that a
it was.
professional hit team?
Yeah. See, it
Wow.
was. Bottom line, I'm talking from the bench about what I am discerning from the evidence, and the
Hmm.
conclusion is it's not Ray. It looks like something else is going on here. So the whole thing was we had to keep it on Ray. They had to keep it on Ray because, as it turned out, the FBI furnished the murder weapon and ammunition, and it was a professional, well, a military team, 2-man hit team from the fire station. It was not from the flop house nor the bushes.
Wow. I could see that definitely. So that was a government sanctioned hit, what you saying? Basically, it was
I don't
government.
know if it was government sanctioned, but again, another little incident. My secretary said, Judge, you need to get this call immediately. Take a recess quick. I
Hmm.
said, well, something urgent's come up. The court's going to take a 5-minute recess. She said, hurry, hurry. So I got back to my chambers and I picked up the call. Said, Judge, this is Detective so-and-so. He was former client. He said, me and his partner, I knew him too, said, we are out here in the parking lot and we've got 2 people out here. We're looking at them. They're trying to break into your Lexus.
Wow.
So what? He said, we'll take care of it. So I got back on the bench, and about 5, 10 minutes later, Judge, you need to take this call. So I said, we have to take another recess. There's a real tense situation that's developed. I didn't tell anybody what. So I
Hmm.
go back there and said, Judge, we caught them. They were trying to plant 2 kilos of coke in your car.
Wow.
So we got them laid out. They say they were trying to conduct a sting operation, and they won't disclose what agency they are, but they've got some generic federal ID. So we're checking it out.
That's crazy. This is doing the James Earl Ray thing.
Yeah.
So you was actually in court conducting business relating to the James Earl Ray thing when they were trying to break into your car.
Well, no, I wasn't at that point, but
Hmm.
that's what everybody was surmising that it was about.
So were you ever afraid? I mean, like the break in, potential killing, assassination
Well,
attempt,
look,
or
let me say this. When that thing happened at my house, that was better than a good nut or having some good sex with a beautiful woman that you kept the lights on so you could see how fine she was when you were getting it off.
uh-huh.
I mean, I got off on that. I was going, yes, yes, yay. If I go to Valhalla, I'm going to Valhalla, God damn it. And I'm gonna take several with me.
You might have took at least one if you shot him in his neck, right? If he was bleeding out.
All 5 of them were bleeding.
Wow.
By the blood trails.
But no
There were
hospital ever
4
reported these
continuous
people.
blood trails and 1 intermittent one.
So that, but no hospitals in the area never got any people with
None.
guns. So that's interesting. Wow. Mm.
At least
So
none that the police could pick up on, and this is coming from the top.
yeah, wow. That's that is something that people would do that type of stuff to go to whatever end to keep the truth from coming out. But the truth is out there, but do people receive the truth or even do their homework? That's the question, Judge. Because people don't even know your resume until you start talking about it, via platforms like these and social media. That people didn't know the stuff you put in to the movement, your credentials.
Well, let me say this. I had an opinion about death, which was dying isn't the worst thing that could happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd always contemplated some wrong ways of dying that I particularly did not like. Now,
Mm.
I've been scuba diving since I've been 19, so that's 54 years, all right?
Okay.
And one of the things that is a way I would not like to go is to drown.
Mm.
So almost 3 years ago, I wound up being in the hospital for a month. I was in
Mm,
ICU for a week, and what had happened is I was having an adverse reaction to some medication that wound up causing me to have effective bilateral renal kidney failure. So I was suffering pulmonary edema and I couldn't breathe. They had to put me on a ventilator, right? And that is the worst damn
mm,
thing because you can't sleep because you got to stay wide awake to keep making yourself breathe, breathe. And all you can do is just take little shallow breaths, and they're pumping 100% oxygen into you. And then that stuff starts causing everything to get raw inside. That
mm.
is an awful way to go. And I'm looking at all of these people who are going around, yeah, COVID-19, that's fake, man. You know, I don't mind getting it. I'm healthy.
Mm,
Yeah, but if you got to go that way, buddy, that is a bad way to go to suffocate and you can't breathe, even
yeah.
with a ventilator. That's how folk are dying. So, with that in mind, I had something like that in mind my whole life. So, the deal was, as you know, there's much to be said by going out quickly rather than going out miserably and slow.
Hmm.
And I've seen a lot of people die. I think by the time I was in graduated from high school, I'd seen maybe 13, 14 people killed where I actually saw it happening.
Wow.
And I was, the furthest distance was across a street. It was Normandy, right at 58th Place, just off of Slauson in Los Angeles. And the closest was 2 feet away, standing next to the person.
Oh man.
The one across Normandy, there was a bar over there, and somebody drunk had been thrown out of the bar. So he came back and I was looking at it. I think I was about 8, 9 years old, and he took a gas can and splashed gas all inside the place, and then came back with a blowtorch and lit it. And all of these people got burnt. 4 or 5 people died, and about 8 or 9 people got badly burned. It didn't burn the place down, and it reopened up. Not a year or two after that, two guys got into a fight outside, and one guy took a box cutter and slashed this guy low across his abdomen and just really ripped him. And
Oh,
his intestines started falling out, and he was trying to hold his guts in, and the other guy kept yanking his arms back so he couldn't hold them, and his guts just spilled all out on the ground, and he fell to his knees. So this guy started stomping on this guy's guts, and then went over and grabbed multiple handfuls of dirt from somebody's garden right around the corner, or flower bed, started throwing it on his guts so he would get infected, then urinated on him. And the guy
ugh.
fell over. And before the ambulance got there, he was twitching violently, and the guy died, you know. So this
I mean, did
bled
it
all
catch the
over
guy
the
who
place.
did it? Did the guy stay there to
Oh,
watch?
yeah, they caught him. He left, but they caught him. Another time, which was funny,
Mm,
kind of. Uh, well, he didn't die, but it's about wolf tickets. Somebody was selling wolf tickets, and somebody bought a whole book of them for the premiere performance. Wanted an encore in the station, in a curtain call. Me and some guys went in a liquor store and we bought some 6 packs of beer, and somebody behind us in a yellow blazer bought a 6 pack. We all walked out, and there was this deuce and a quarter. That's a Buick.
mm-hmm.
Both front doors open. This woman was cussing this guy out. He was going, "Oh baby," and she's, "Oh baby, nothing. Your breath stank. You can't. You know, you broke. Blah 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 blah." So everybody looked over there. So he didn't say anything to us, but he started talking to the guy behind. "Hey man, what you looking at?" Hey, fool, you in the yellow. Talking to you. Gosh, man, what you talking about? What you looking at, man? You looking at me and my old lady? No. You a damn lie, man. So, okay, I'm a lie, brother. You know, go on tend to your business. What's the matter, man? You think she ugly or something? That's your woman, man. I ain't talking about her. And then it got into, man, don't be sitting up here. You calling me a lie, man. I'll cut your gizzard out. So he goes in the glove compartment and pulls out a knife, not a gun. So the guy in the yellow windbreaker relaxes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So me and my homie said, man, let's get behind this car with some engine block between us and this event. So we're looking, and everybody in the parking lot was looking. So the guy walks over with his knife, man, I'm gonna cut your gizzard out, fool. He said, no, you're not gonna do that. So the dude swung at him, he jumped back. He swung at him again and he cut the sleeve on his windbreaker, but he didn't cut the guy's skin. He said, now that's enough. Guy say, well, you know, it ain't enough, man. I'm going to take you out. So he said, no, you're not. He pulled out his pistol and shot him. Boom, fool, you selling wolf tickets. Boom. And I want a book of them. Boom, to the premier performance. Boom, and I want a goddamn encore. Boom, and I want a goddamn curtain call, mother. You know, blah, blah, blah. Wolf tickets selling EMF. This guy went on, got in his car, and left, right? So the
Uh-huh.
woman came out the car and she grabbed the, reached in his pocket, took his keys. He pissing all on him. Just go, oh, it hurt, it hurt. And she say, fool, you done got your dumb ass killed. I'm out of here, ass. And she left him. So when LAPD arrived, right? Everybody was saying they didn't see anything. This old brother said, I saw it. Everybody looked at him like, what? Yeah, that man on the ground, he was trying to rob this man. Had that knife laying over there. Man got chased around, slipped once. Everybody said, yeah, we saw that. And then he went in his car. He managed to get the key in the trunk. He got this pistol out. He had to load it on the run. It was begging this man for his life. And the guy kept there talking about, I need your money. And the dude had to shot him, begged him to back off and shot him. And the guy was talking about, he was with the knife over there, talking about he gonna kill it. You know, man had to defend his life. So
Wow, that's amazing.
gave a wrong description of the car the guy was in there. But yeah, I saw, we all saw that. So they handcuffed the dude on the ground and he's still peeing on the mama, I want my mama, you know. So
Well, he's lucky he's still alive. Oh, he
yeah,
survived
but
that.
that one
Yeah.
survived. Another time, I think I was like 14 and some. I snuck out of the house I was supposed to be in. I climbed out of my bedroom window, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went through the backyard to the next street, then the next street over where a friend had a house. So we all gathered over there. So somebody's cousin who was in high school drove by, and we all went with him to a party we had no business going to.
Mm-hmm.
So we were looking at all the grown girls, you know, going around tight dresses and everything. Oh man, what you looking at, you fool? You looking at my woman? No, man, I ain't looking at your woman. Don't you, man? Don't act up in here strange, man. So we heard this commotion out on the front porch. So we look out, step out. Man, what you say you gonna do, man? I'm gonna kill you, man. You just wait till I get my shit. Wait a minute. You ain't got your shit with you, man? No, man, let me get it, man. I'll be right back. No, man. Earl, you heard dude, man. He say he gonna kill me. I heard it, man. I heard him say that. You hear that, Willie? Yeah, man. I heard him say he gonna kill you, man. Man, you ain't going nowhere, man. Let me get my shit. No, man. You think I'm a fool gonna let you get your shit so you may try to kill me? No, man. You ain't going nowhere. Well, man, wait a minute. Let me get my. No, you ain't got your shit with you. You heard it. Everybody heard it. Yeah. And he said he gonna kill me. I heard that too. All right, man, I got something for you. boom, boom. Said, you gonna kill me, motherfucker, blah, blah, blah. The dude hit the ground. He shot him 2 more times in the head, right?
So he really killed him. He dead, right?
Really killed him, yeah. It was in the newspaper. So me and my group, we go running back through the house, knocked over a couch. We found a bathroom that was open, and there was a window in the bathroom. And we broke the window and climbed out the window, and there was this big German Shepherd out there.
Oh,
I
geez.
got over the fence. Three of us got over the fence. Fourth, there were six of us. And one guy, the dog grabbed the back of his jeans and ripped the pockets out and bit him on the ass. But we got out of there. And, we got separated from the cousins, so we had to hoof it back. That took us until the sun was getting ready to come back up.
Wow.
But it is
That's
what it
crazy.
is.
But why
Yeah.
would people? Why would you say that? I'm gonna go get my gun. I mean, why you just be quiet about it?
Well, that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
You keep your shit on you and you
Mm-hmm.
keep quiet about it. Lesson learned about everybody got the floor show. And see, one time I showed somebody, I've been taking martial arts and other stuff for 55 years,
Right.
54 years, and I've been shooting for 67 years. My old man taught me to shoot when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the drill that we used to do is we'd set up targets. We'd hand load. There'd be 6 or 7 of us, and we'd load up so everybody'd fire 500 rounds of center fire and 500 rim fire every weekend. This
Mm-hmm.
went on for a long time. So we had a drill where when somebody blew a whistle or made a certain sound, or we'd say Wilson, which was just what we say. Uh, you were supposed to have a quarter resting on the back of your
Mm-hmm.
hand out. You were supposed to draw and fire before the quarter hit the ground when you heard the signal and hit your target. So some years later, some fool was talking about, okay, and this time I didn't shoot somebody. Some idiot was waving a gun around. So while he's waving, he suddenly found the muzzle of my pistol staring him right between the eyes. I said, see, you didn't expect that. So thank you. Hold it up. If you move it down, you breathe heavily, you're dying. So I took his pistol, unloaded it, reholstered mine. Said, now I'm here to do some investigation for a client of mine. That's
Mm-hmm.
what we will do. We will not be acting a damn fool like you're doing. So, see, if you have it, keep it concealed. You don't need to pull it out unless you need to pull it out. If you need to pull it out, it's because you've got justification to using lethal force and even taking the life of your assailant. So don't shoot unless you're going to kill. And I can take anybody, half the cops I know out on a range, put a target at 7 yards away, which is the typical distance according to the FBI at which gunfights occur. And they do well to put several out of the many rounds into the kill zone of the target.
Mm-hmm.
Then remember, the target may not drop dead. 1968, UCLA's campus, Campbell Hall, we had a meeting on whether or not we were going to support Ron Karenga's US organization in his bid to take over the Black Studies Department, or we were going to do it our way. Some Panthers were there, and there were 4 US members that ambushed John Huggins and Bunchy Carter, who John was Minister of Propaganda or Information, and Bunchy was chairman of the Panther Party. Well, let's just say I stepped out on this because I was going up to my office because I had an appointment. This is around the noon hour on campus on a weekday, broad daylight, well lit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, two US members pulled their pistols out. One of them shot John in the back twice, and another one shot Bunchy twice in the chest. They took off running down a long hallway. John was shot even with the door facing down the hallway. He pulls a 357 and fires off 6 shots, one of which hits the guy, one of the shooters, in the no accomplice in the back. It hits him in his scapula, but it does not go through into the thorax. So they keep running. He's got a sore back. Then John falls over. By now, I've gotten back down. So I see just after he's got through shooting, he falls over backwards and blood starts bubbling out of his eyes, mouth. Eyes are open, and Bunchy is face down up on one elbow and he's moaning. And then he just drops. So they lived long enough after being fatally wounded for that. Meanwhile, what had happened is, fortunately, I had come down, and this part never made the news. Somebody put 4 bullet holes in the back of my chair because I was supposed to be in the office. Somebody had kicked in the door, and they had to repair the door jamb, and that was upstairs. So that was another episode. So we have all of these things going on. So sometimes when I tell folks something, it's like, okay, this is what somebody who's seen that, done that, quite a few times would tell you how to avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had an uncle that was in the Buffalo Soldiers, 10th Cavalry, from 1881 up until 1906.
Wow.
And he retired, and then he wasn't making it out in the real world, so he joined back up. But he was high, bright, and he could pass for white, so he joined the Alabama Big Red 1 First Infantry Division. And in World War One, he was top sergeant for the division, one of them. And he was in combat, and he told my old man, he said, look, if you ever get in a hot fight, they're going to draft you, of course, with this new war going on. He said, I'm an old man, but I'll tell you this. He said, if you get in cover behind a log or an obstruction, don't shoot over it, shoot around the sides of it. And if you go in the left, start shooting on the right side. And if you're shooting on the right side, leave out the left. Leave out on the opposite side you've been shooting on. And he gave some stuff, hints like that my old man gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And my old man was in the quartermaster corps. That's where they put black folk. He was sergeant, master sergeant at the time.
Mm.
He was a little older. He got out of the war at 35 instead of
Wow.
being 20 something. So
He was drafted or he signed up for it?
he got drafted.
Okay.
So when he was rerouted, he was with the Red Ball Express.
Mm.
Patton directed everything over to the Ardennes. That's the Battle of the Bulge. My old man was driving a truck.
You probably
And
do my grandfather. He was in the Red Ball Express. He was in Battle of the
yeah,
Bulge. And Mega
yeah,
Evers was in it too, though. He was a Red Ball
yeah.
Express guy. Yeah, so
So
those
my
guys were
old
tough.
man, yeah, my old man's truck. Well, didn't have a truck. He was a sergeant, but the truck he was riding
Mm-hmm.
in, and most of them they had got disabled, shot up, or whatever. So while we whoopee, you're asked to volunteer for the infantry, which he did for the time. He
Mm-hmm.
wound up getting a combat infantry badge, Purple Heart, and a Silver Star off of this. So he was
Wow,
there
that's
two
amazing.
weeks.
Yeah.
He didn't want to talk about the hell too much, but he did say that stuff that his uncle Booker had told him about going this way in and getting this way out. You know, he said saved his life 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that Battle of the Buds was something else, man. He survived that, man. That's a
Yeah,
tough guy. Your old man was a tough guy.
yeah. So he came out with an attitude. He said, "I am not putting myself on my knees for any goddamn, as they called it, peckerwood to try and beat me because I'm taking his hand off and I'll be standing when I do it." So I noticed these vets would look people in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they were being racist or whatever else, and the folk that did not go to the war, they'd be looking down at the ground, shuffling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a thing. That just goes back to my earlier point about the generation before me, the ones that went to war. They weren't going to be nonviolent,
Yeah.
and they
You
had
know,
to
it's a.
think of they had to think about preachers too. Say
Mm-hmm.
preachers need to be preaching and saving souls, not telling people what to do to get free. See,
Mm.
that's not going to work because their job is not doing the stuff that you need to do to get to work. Now, I know my old man had some buddies get together at the house back in the 60s who had been with him, and they got to talking about some of the stuff. It got so rough, they had to literally cut some throats
Mm.
with knives and stuff. And
Come on, in civilian life, they were back in civilian life. They did
they
this,
were
or
back in civilian life, not in civilian life, but when they were at the Bulge, you know what
okay,
they
okay,
had to do.
okay,
They got
yeah,
overrun one time, and they got down hand to hand. So they were talking about, yeah, and remember
yeah.
when Ray put that knife right through the guy's temple, and he couldn't pull it out. He had both feet on it, and he had
My God.
bought the knife, and he didn't want to lose it. And we had to tell him, "Man, fool, don't get your butt shot." He said, "Yeah." Then a bullet whizzed by his head. He jumped in that slit trench, and there was shit in it. Said, "Yeah, I remember." We're talking
How
about
this shit
stuff
got you?
like that, you know. So that's the way they were rolling.
Wow. You
But
see, these stories need to be told, though. These are the stories that need to be told.
of course, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the basketball player, the GOAT, Mr. Everything for the NBA, we and I were classmates, and he wrote a book. He writes history books. He's a scholar. And he wrote one about the 761st Armored Regiment. And an interesting thing he put in there was one of its more interesting members was Jackie Robinson, who wound up playing baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And he details how Jackie Robinson, um, as officer of the day, he was a captain, wound up escorting a colleague's wife home who had been visiting the base. He took a taxi to take her home and a bus back. And they told him to move to the back. He refused. And they called the police and some MPs, and the MPs didn't know what to do with him because he was an officer, a captain,
Mm-hmm.
and he had his 45 on him. So at his court martial, the testimony was that Jackie Robinson had his 45 out. He chambered around, had the hammer cocked, and he said, "Some MF is going to die tonight besides me." So I know we celebrate peaceful Rosa Parks and the ladies, or some of the ladies, for non-violently resisting, but Jackie Robinson had his 45 out ready to deal.
Yeah.
It took a while to talk him down.
That's
But they
interesting.
got respectful when they saw that 1911 leveled at them.
Mm-hmm. It's a couple of stories. Like, he had a World War II veteran in Mississippi down in Holmes County near, I guess, Vicksburg, named Eddie Knoll. This is like a year before Emmett Till was lynched. But this guy was a short guy. He was a sharpshooter in World War II. I mean, he was a crack shot, like amazing, like a human machine gun. He ended up killing this white guy who was messing around with his wife, who owned a juke joint. Killed the sheriff deputy all the first weekend of 1954. had one of the largest manhunts in Mississippi history. Had over 1,000 white men looking for him in a winter storm. But he had black and white families hiding him out. But the thing about it was he could have killed a lot of them peckerwoods. He could kill a whole lot of them, but he was doing self defense because he'll watch them in the woods and he'll shoot at them. But he just had a regular rifle. But because he had such a quick release, it was like he was like a machine gun, you know. So they
Well, yeah,
finally caught him. He turned himself in, and come to find out, the reason why they never went to trial for killing those people was because one of his ancestors was a governor of Mississippi that he's named after, named Edmund Knoll. So the white
well,
part of
yeah.
his family protected him from the chair. He ended up dying of natural causes back in 1994. But that story is not well known. But it was a white dude that I interviewed who wrote about this story because he was like a
I've heard
teenager.
about it. I've
Okay,
heard about
growing
it.
up, he wrote a book about it. The time
I've
of
heard
Eddie
about
Knoll.
it. My maternal grandfather is listed as being from Mississippi,
Okay.
but is actually Shreveport, Louisiana. He was very dark, half
Mm-hmm.
African. His father was a Nigerian Yoruba district sub chieftain who got kidnapped for
Wow.
political purposes. But when they sold him, the slave trade had been over since it was in 1818, so they couldn't import slaves, so they had to manumit him. But they made him
Mm-hmm.
pay the purchaser back the purchase price. He was a cobbler in addition, In Africa, if you are a chieftain or whatever or a high official, you have to have a hands-on trade. Now, my grandfather was born in 1852. He made it to 100 something.
Wow.
Uh, exactly 100. He died 1952, I think it was. But anyway, when it was in the 1880s, he and another brother murdered two deputy sheriffs who had had something to do with the lynching of another one of their brothers. There were
Mm.
11 of them.
Wow. 11
And
brothers?
no, 11 siblings. There
Okay.
were 5 guys and 6 girls. Now, it's interesting how this happened. My great grandfather, the African,
Mm-hmm.
when he got freed, there was a slave owner in the district that could not stand free colored. So this fool tormented my great grandfather over and over. So when this guy went bankrupt, they had a sale of his property. So to spite him, my great grandfather bought this slave owner's favorite mistress and 5 children he had had with the slave mistress,
Mm.
just out of spite. So he had 6 slaves. And he and his female slave got together and he wound up marrying her. And that is one of my great grandmothers.
Wow.
And in addition to the 5 kids she had with the slave master, she had 6 with my great grandfather. And my grandfather on my mother's side was his first child with this woman.
Mm.
Uh, Another great grandmother was uh, Choctaw Indian. And she wound up giving Lane College, which you know about up here in Jackson, 1/3 of the land that they're built on.
Oh, wow.
I spoke to them about that. They had tried to persuade her that these poor ex slaves needed some property to build a college on. She said, I'm not selling it. They said, but they've had such a hard time not selling it. And then they told her, well, they want to get so that they can learn how to overcome their circumstances and deal with basically their white oppression. So my Choctaw great grandmother said, all right, you got the property. They said, how much? She said, no charge. I'm giving it to you. If you're
Mm.
trying to teach them to be what they need to be, that's okay. I don't want you to come in here talking about poor slaves because they could have rebelled or they could have fled. She said, when we had a problem, we had a scalp on the lodge pole. You just sit there and take your slavery. So when you're talking about not being slaves, then you get the property free of charge. Old
So
family.
Kanye West was right that slavery is a choice. Then he was right
It
about that.
is. I said it too. Been saying it for years.
Hmm.
See, I had no ancestor that had to be freed by the Emancipation Proclamation or the 13th Amendment. Now, on
Okay.
my father's side, there is one great grandfather, great, yeah, great grandfather, and he decapitated his master and the mistress. He cut both her hands off because she had touched him once,
Wow.
and he fled up to Canada. So
Okay. You come from some interesting people, Judge. Okay.
now I'll admit the pale side is because, well, my paternal grandmother is an interesting woman. She's high pale, and her mother was a New Orleans fancy woman, Reed Ho, high class hoe in a bordello, and her father was an Irishman.
Hmm.
The Irishman is interesting. One of his
Hmm.
brothers was in South Carolina and had been a former sea captain, and he had a whole passel of slaves.
Wow.
Another one of his brothers went off to Canada, set up a business there, and the other one, which is my great grandfather on that side, stayed down in New Orleans. So I got an Irish businessman from down there and a New Orleans fancy hoe, his great grandparents on that side. The
Everything
other
balances
great,
out, Judge.
yeah, the other great grandfather on that side was the one that decapitated the master and went off to Canada. So
Hmm.
what it is, the one that's Irish, he bought my great grandmama and then he set her free. But anyway, they got married, so that's good, I guess. But
It's
I
complicated.
found it interesting. I was talking to the American Airline Pilots Association as the guest speaker,
Hmm.
and I'm sitting next to the CEO at the head table.
Mm.
So after I got through speaking, this group of about 20 people came up to me, and there were three or four blacks in the group, and they said, "We think you're one of our relatives." So I got in contact with them, provided them with some information, and they came back and said, "Are any of these your relatives?" So I recognized my grandmother and my father and an uncle, and I
Wow.
said, "Yeah, I guess it's me." They say, "Congratulations, you Irish." But now let's get back to that incident.
Hmm.
Alaskan Airlines flew me and a homeboy of mine who was acting as my bodyguard. He also worked with me on the show. We met with the executives for Alaska Airline at LA Airport before we got on the plane, right?
Hmm.
They put us on the plane, VIP thing, champagne all the way. The flight up there was excellent. All right. Coming back, the CEO rode in the limo with me to the airport. He walks in with me, and CEO for Alaskan Airlines sees me through security, gets the ticket brought to us, total
Wow.
VIP stuff. We drank champagne before we got there. We get escorted to the jetway by the CEO of the company. We
Wow.
walked down, get to the airplane, and they had some redneck woman from Alabama who had never been senior flight attendant, but the regular one was sick, and she had been sent over. And she said, "What you doing in here?" So, well, they told us we can come in. Say, "Well, why are you sitting here? This is first class."
Wow.
Of course, it's first class. Let me see your ticket. Now, in all the times, million miles worth of credits I got, I'd never had that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And who did this? I said, well, he's standing out in the hallway. You can shake hands with him. Why would I shake hands? Because he's CEO of the company you work for. You don't know him? I said, Mr. So-and-so, he's out there. And she said, I'm not going out there. Well, you got a ticket. Let me see yours. I said, he's with me. I want to see his ticket.
Wow.
So when we
That's
sat
horrible.
down, it got crazy. It got to the point where I was taking some medication. You got a diuretic, you got to go piss every now and then, So I
Mm-hmm.
got up. So I walked up and I saw that there was a couple of people waiting. So I backed up. I went to my seat and sat on the arm. She said, you got to go stand back in econo class and wait in line back there. This was a security. No, I'm not going to do that. I told you, I said, I'm just going to sit down. Why aren't you going back there? I don't have to piss anymore. I'm sitting down, in my seat. Is there a problem? I mean, it just went on like that. So it got to be funny. When we got off the plane, there had been a sky marshal on it. And he was an old bald head fool, and we could see he was packing hardware. And
Mm-hmm.
he came up, you guys are fucking idiots. So my homeboy says, and goes off on him. Now, this guy's name is Cliff Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
I've known him for 50 years. We kind of look alike, but he's a lot bigger than me and a couple of inches taller than you. And
Mm-hmm.
Black Belt Magazine for years have styled him probably the most dangerous human alive in North America, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
happens is Cliff is gonna whip his ass. I said, no, Cliff, let me talk with him. I said, look, sir. He said, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. I said, oh,
Wow.
now you just made a mistake. So the only reason he didn't get his ass kicked is it would have been bad if two 60-year-old men had rendered this particular sky marshal's ass unconscious and unable to move in
Uh-huh.
intensive care for a while. Cliff said, what do you want? I said, I take him high. He said, okay, I'll take him low. We'll wipe his ass out. Anyway,
Wow.
he got nervous and went on. So we have to go to New York right after this. So we get the limo to take us around the other side of the airport where we're over to fly back east to New York. Cliff is
Mm-hmm.
going from New York to Prague, Czech Republic, where he's got a condo.
Mm.
So he's got some stuff that the limo delivered to him. It's a duffel bag chock full of fabric softener because his housekeeper was saying they couldn't get fabric softener.
Okay.
So he checked that in with the luggage and he put as many boxes of not liquid, but tissue fabric softener as he could get in there. We get up to security and this TSA type starts asking him a bunch of stuff. And he's going, why can't a black man have fabric softener, non-liquid? It is carry-on. That looks suspicious. Why does it look suspicious for a black man to have that? So the guy said, I don't like your attitude. Stand over there.
Wow.
I'm calling the police. So I stood over there and waited next to him. You got to stand away from him. Stand away at least 5 feet. So I stood 5 feet away. So these two cops come in. One of them's Asian and one of them's white. LAPD. They walk in and they look at Cliff. One of them does sort of what? And then when they get up to the TSA agent, yeah, this guy over there, big guy, he's got an attitude problem, blah, 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 blah. So the white guy says, you mean that big guy with the tan shirt on over there? So, yeah, that's him. So his Asian partner turned to go walk over there and he grabbed him by the arm. So, he said, look, hold up. Everybody hold up. Say, let me just say this. You see that man over there? If I were you, I'd make him smile.
Mm.
I know who that is. He trains our instructors. And quite frankly, there are not enough police in this airport to make that man do anything he does not want to do, even if we shoot him. So make him smile.
Mm.
By now, this basketball team is going through
Mm-hmm.
security and they're all looking at this incident. So the Asian guys, but and the white guy says, look, man, you're trying to get laid, and I want to see my wife tonight so I can keep getting laid. Now,
Mm.
come on, let's get out of here. And they take a few more steps, and the white cop talks, stops, turns over his shoulder. Remember, make him smile.
Wow.
They leave.
Wow.
So the guy comes over. Well, I guess I ought to make you smile, you know. So he, is we go on through and we're going down the concourse, and by now these kids have stopped in one of these uh, bistros that's on the concourse, and everybody says, that's him, man. LAPD said make him smile. That is our police. Yeah,
Oh wow.
blah, 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 blah. And they come running over, and everybody wants to high five him, you know. We go on. See,
Mm.
he's a baby boomer. We can be some badasses. See, I don't know too many people. And by the way, Cliff is a doctor, Cliff. You know, he's
Wow.
been a
Wow.
college professor.
Well,
So
man,
he
was
go ahead.
the Alabama lady ever reprimanded by the company? Did y'all ever report that about how
We
she?
reported it to the CEO. He said he'd take care of it. So
Okay.
anyway, uh,
And
yeah,
that's in 2004 or five or something that happened.
yeah, 2006,
That's
five or
crazy.
six.
I thought it was back in the day doing Jim Crow, but you said
No,
y'all
but
60s. I'm like, wow.
it still exists. So
Mm.
what I told that long story for was it was some interesting aspects. In other words, black man can be a real badass, worse than any street thug, but have a PhD and make big bucks.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a judge with a doctorate degree and you don't have to be a pussy. You can stand up for stuff. You can
But
be a Hollywood celebrity making more. You know, I made more money than any man in Hollywood, but Leslie Moonves, CVO for CBS. The only
mm,
other person making more than me was Judge Judy. It wasn't Oprah. It was Joe Brown and Judy at the top of the heap, and Leslie Moonves. Oprah was in the same unit with us, and I beat her just about every week for several years running in the ratings.
mm.
So, black man, are you successful? Well, there was nobody that was male in all of Hollywood but one man making more money than me. You can't get any better than that.
Well, let me ask you this: how
So,
much
but
money do
you
you?
don't have to see, the point is you don't have to bend over and drop your boxes and play punk like so many of them do.
What I'm
You
going to ask you that because, like, how much money do you need to say I got FU money where I can walk away from something? Because I look at the Nick Cannon situation where he had to backpedal with the stuff they call him
He
anti-Semitic.
wasn't making
So what's
that
your take
much
on that?
money. He wasn't
Was it,
making that much money. He's not in the Millionaires Club. They
so
call it
Nick
the
Cannon is
Millionaires
not?
Club. No, he's not. See,
But
the
they say he
Millionaires
listed as
Club.
60 million though. But you said that's not true.
No, that's crap. They inflate that with the PR stuff.
Okay.
See, if you look up Wikipedia, they say I had a draw 20 million a year, not counting bonuses and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So you know it ramp up real quickly. Leslie Moonves, the CEO for CBS, was paid according to what they gave to the stockholders in their newsletter 11 million a year, you know, with bonuses. So I was 20 something million a year, and Judy was about 22 million a year, not counting bonuses. See, when you start looking at all the rest of this stuff, incentive stuff, it ramps up. But in terms of what you make if everything doesn't hit well, you go on that. Now, I lost a lot of it in this divorce. Let's put it that
Well,
way.
you got married in
But
California, right? You got married in
yeah,
California, so they get help.
community
Everybody get
property.
help.
So it is what it is, and you have to deal with it as it is. But see, I say that not to boast, but I say that to contrast what I did and a few others did, like standing up and acting like a man and saying, hell no, screw you. When there's so
Mhm,
many talking about, like the gentleman you just mentioned, he
mhm.
talks about what he had to do because he had to keep on doing what he's doing.
Right.
You see
I
what
mean, he
I'm
didn't even
saying?
own the rights to his show, what I thought was
Well,
crazy.
see, he didn't hire a lawyer to help him out. I'm
Mm,
a long term lawyer, and I knew I'd even represented some labor unions. So I had legal counsel.
mhm,
So we went over everything with a fine tooth comb. He didn't do that. So he didn't understand what's going on. They wanted to pull that on me about we own the rights to Judge Joe Brown. I said, no, you don't, because if you look at
mhm,
my contract, you will find that's my performing name. I tried to just use Joe Brown. They said I couldn't because there was a Joe E. Brown from back before World War II. So I couldn't use my own name, but they allowed me to use Judge Joe Brown,
mhm,
and that is my registered performing name. And also, I have a certificate around here somewhere that the governor gave me after I got elected to my second 8-year term as a Tennessee judge, and it declares that I'm judge for life as my official title. So you can go get screwed. You can't deprive me of my official title. So, and if you read my contract, I have the right to fair usage of my trademarks and emblems and all of my sayings. And you don't get community property and such stuff like man up.
Hey, everybody, this is Brother Ron. I am asking you all to do me a big favor. Think about supporting the We All Be movement. Your donation is tax deductible. The We All Be Group Incorporated is a recognized 501c3. And I'm just asking you all because I want to keep on bringing y'all quality work through the way that I know how to do best. And I'm going to sing my praises and toot my horn. A lot of y'all were not hip to Dick Gregory until Brother Ron brought him on the We All Be platform, until that jingle review we did. Y'all seen another side of Judge Joe Brown, and Judge Joe Brown's message has been amplified. But it was We All Be that brought Judge Joe Brown to y'all back in 2014. And so many others. And we covered so many things. So help us out so we can help you all. Peace.